Patch 13.5 is another huge patch, so let's run through all those changes and how they affect our tier list this week. Starting off with that top lane as always, and in the God tier we have Olaf, and in the S tier we have Singed, Camille, Darius, Jax, Fiora, Rengar, Kled and Wukong. That is a lot of bruisers. Quite a few other champions are performing surprisingly well in the A tier too though, like Riven, Cho'Gath, Malphite and even Alawi, who just missed out of the S tier. Kennen is getting some pretty huge buffs this week though. They're buffing the base damage and AP ratio of his Q and reducing its cooldown. Kennen's E is also going to deal more damage to minions now, which will significantly help out his wave clear. Kennen has just been non-existent for far too long now, but keep an eye on him because these changes could make him bounce back with a vengeance. For now, we've put him up to the B tier, but let's see how he pans out over the next week. If you're thinking of picking up Kennen and want to stay up to date with the best builds, then check out Mobalytics by clicking the link in the description, where you can find all the best items, runes, and everything else imported straight into your client in Champion Select. Aatrox got a few too many nerfs after his period of huge domination last season. He's just been a bit weak in the hands of the majority of players recently though, so it is expected to see him receive some love. Riot are buffing his W and his ultimate, so be prepared to see lots of players picking him back up again. Tryndamere also hasn't been quite as popular recently as he has been in the past, and that's largely due to him not really being quite as effective. Well, his HP and AD per level are going up, so just like Aatrox, get ready to play against a lot more Tryndameres. Rumble's buffs though are quite surprising, as despite his low play rate, his stats aren't actually that bad, and we all know just how scary Rumble can be at demolishing those low range matchups. Rumble's E magic resist reduction is being increased, which will definitely help him abuse this even more. We've got him in the A tier for now, but just be careful because in some matchups he might just be a tad terrifying. Gangplank is finally receiving some nerfs and his passive damage is finally getting brought down a notch. Not only that though, but his E cooldown is now a flat 18 seconds, which is a bit of a relief. Because with those quick blades and some ability haste, it just seems to feel like Gangplank has those big bad barrels up 24/7. We've moved GP down to the A tier this patch as we do feel like these nerfs could finally balance him down a bit. Yorick's actually getting a nerf too this week, and it seems like this is mainly directed at his insane stats at low elo. They're nerfing his bonus ghoul damage on his E by 10%. Don't worry too much though if you are one of the few Yorick mates, because we think he'll still be just fine, especially so at those lower ranks. Pantheon is another champion who's already performing really well in the right hands, but he's just not really that popular. His base health regen is going down and his E cooldown is being adjusted slightly, but his base attack speed and attack speed ratios are going up, plus his Q is getting some juicy buffs. Do not underestimate a good Pantheon this patch, because in the right matchup he can easily pop off and start seriously stomping. Let's move over to the jungle now, and in the God tier we just have Jarvan, and in the S tier we have Lee Sin, Wukong, Zac, Fiddlesticks, Nunu, Rammus and Udyr. The jungle is receiving yet another round of adjustments this week, with some more changes to Camp Gold, minion experience and counter jungling too. It appears that Riot are trying to encourage clearing and farming the jungle rather than just permanently ganking, with camps rewarding more gold across the board. And now you'll deal the same bonus damage to camps no matter if they're in your jungle or the enemy's one. So get ready for Kindred to be back invading you 24/7 again, which is why we've moved her up from B to A this week. Rammus has had a crazy high win rate for the last few weeks, and he's getting a few nerfs this patch. Now, Rammus is a really difficult champion to predict how he's going to do after getting changed. Sometimes the tiniest change nerfs him into the ground, and vice versa, sometimes he's suddenly broken. So it is very hard to judge how he's going to do with the nerfs to his Q damage and his AD per level. We're going to keep him in the S tier for now, as his performance recently has just been a bit absurd. But check back next week in our mid-patch tier list update video to know for sure just how hard these nerfs hit him. Nocturne is pretty damn underrated right now, and at the majority of ranks his stats are seriously impressive. We all know just what Nocturne is good at, ganking lanes from the middle of nowhere with that ultimate, snowballing the map and terrorizing squishy carries. This seems to be happening pretty often in his games judging by his win rates, and honestly we think he's a little bit sleeper OP. He is insanely good at repeat ganking lanes without summoners, but he also clears very efficiently too and takes objectives quickly, so it could be time to revisit one of the OG junglers again. Everybody and their bomber is playing Gragas right now. Seriously, he is definitely flavour of the month, and this is reflected in his really strong results recently. Gragas not only packs some serious damage and fantastic ganks, but his counter ganking and his ability to shut down certain matchups are what really make him pop off. With junglers like Jarvan and Zac being so popular, Gragas can completely ruin their day by interrupting their engages with his E and sending them back to the shopkeeper with his ultimate. Now with the jungle changes, Gragas will likely be affected a little bit, as his clearing and power farming isn't really the strongest trait he has. But if you do enjoy him, keep playing him. Moving down into the mid lane now, and in the god tier we have Annie, and in the S tier we have Tristana, Vladimir, Akshan, Anivia, Cassiopeia, Aurelion Sol, Swain and Victor. Some pretty big item changes here this week as Archangel's Staff and Seraph's Embrace finally received the nerfs they've needed for such a long time. And Cosmic Drive is getting a pretty big change too, increasing its AP by 25 at the cost of its health. This could affect those big abusers of these items like Cassiopeia and Anivia, but we are going to keep them in the S tier just for now, because they have been dominating so much this season so far. Speaking of Aurelion Sol, the big bad scaling Dragon of Doom is getting nerfed this week, and with a crazy win rate and ridiculously high ban rate, it is obviously to be expected. His HP and armor per level are going down, and the bonus magic resistance burst AP ratio of his Q is being reduced by 10%. Aurelion isn't the best before level 9, but after that, he's just so hard to beat. LeBlanc is getting some massive buffs this week, and because of this we've put her up to the A tier. The LeBlanc masters around the globe must be licking their lips because Riot are now buffing her biggest weakness, Wave Clear. LeBlanc's Q now refunds 100% mana and 30% of the remaining cooldown if either part kills the target. It now also deals bonus damage based on level to minions, helping her farm more efficiently, and her Mimick's Q with her ultimate also gains these same effects. LeBlanc has been so punishable because of this obvious weakness in lane, but this could make her go from below average to seriously strong. LeBlanc has never really been that great at lower ranks due to her necessity to snowball and win the game early on. But at higher ranks we expect a lot of good one tricks to start completely popping off with these changes. Fizz is getting his E buff too, which is a pretty scary sight for any AD carry mate. Not only are they increasing the damage of this ability, but also reducing its mana cost as well. We've moved Fizz up to the A tier, as this could be all it takes for him to start running riot all over that mid lane. Oh, and the rest of the map too. Qiyana really isn't doing that badly right now at high elo, but she's getting buffed anyway. She's nowhere near as popular as she has been in recent seasons, but this is likely to change with the damage buffs to her Q and the cooldown buffs to her E. Definitely start preparing to remember how scary a good Qiyana can be. Zed is also receiving some adjustments, nerfing his base magic resist but reducing the cooldown of his E. With lots of nerfs to mage itemization, assassins will slowly but surely start making their big comeback, so get ready for that. Azir is getting some adjustments this week, and we aren't going to go into crazy details as it will take far too long to explain it all out for you, so let's just sum it up quickly. He's getting some changes to his base stats. His passive tower is now usable more often, doesn't last as long, but takes longer to kill. His Q now costs more mana but has a slightly higher AP ratio. His W's passive attack speed is removed but deals more damage, and the AP ratio on his E has been reduced too. All of these changes are aimed at reducing his insane impact in pro play, whilst not making him completely redundant in solo queue. He is in the B tier for now, but let's check back again next week. Hey, time for you AD carry mains now, and in the S tier we have Jhin, Kai'Sa, Twitch, Xayah, Draven and Jinx. Yes, the Jinx buffs are pretty huge this week, and seeing as she's been a little bit underrated recently anyway, we think she's just going to start popping off this patch. Now, one thing to remember is she is super vulnerable to hook supports, which are dominating the support meta right now. But if you can avoid those engages, she's going to be in a really strong spot to scale up and tear through teams in the late game with her AoE damage and passive resets. Caitlyn is getting some nerfs to her base AD and armor this week, and this could be enough to really hurt her. We've actually moved Caitlyn down to the B tier because despite her incredible popularity, she's already being slightly overshadowed by other more busted AD carries. Caitlyn is a very difficult marksman to balance because higher ranking players will always be able to abuse her range to control lanes, take plates, freeze waves, and have full lane priority throughout the lane phase. However, for a lot of players, they just permanently push until they get ganked. And repeat. Xayah though has been completely godlike recently, and it's very expected to see some nerfs coming her way. Her E is now going to deal marginally less damage per feather, and its cooldown is increased slightly too. We don't think that these nerfs are enough to really stop her period of dominating right now though, and therefore we're going to keep her in the S tier. Samira got hit a little bit too hard with her recent nerfs, so this patch we've got some compensation buffs. Riot are buffing her passive slightly after nerfing it a few weeks ago to meet in the middle, and hopefully make her a little bit better again. Samira is definitely a super scary champion when she's a bit too strong though, and I don't think too many bot lane mains have really missed her in recent weeks. But with so many hook and CC supports having an absolute blast right now, Samira is still more than viable in the right matchups and right synergies. We also just wanted to quickly mention Veigar because he's a little bit sleeper OP in the mid and the bot lanes right now. And after some recent buffs, his win rate has increased hugely, and now he's having the best time he's had in quite some time. Veigar has fantastic setup CC, great 2v2 potential, and level 6 all-in power. But he also scales like a monster and deals crazy amounts of damage to not only his enemies, but also structures too. If you haven't played Veigar recently, here's a little heads up that he's much stronger than you may think. Finally, let's take a look at those supports now. And in the S tier, we have Senna, Blitzcrank, Thresh, Annie, Pyke, and Nautilus. And Rakan guards the throne in the God tier. Yes, Rakan is still having an absolute blast of a time in the bot lane. So if you are enjoying him, don't stop playing him anytime soon. One quick little thing to note though is that Oracle Lens is getting its cooldown nerfed this week, so you won't be able to clear those wards quite as early or as often. Yuumi is basically getting a big rework this week, and she's going to feel like a completely different champion. The idea behind these massive changes is to make Yuumi perfect for beginners. We'd recommend checking out Riot's official patch notes if you want to take a serious further look at what they're actually changing, as there's just way too much to go over without turning this tier list and patch rundown video into a video all about the cat instead. The changes do look really interesting though. The fact that her ultimate now heals her allies while slowing enemies at the same time is pretty cool. And the new friendship scoring system of her passive looks like a really interesting mechanic. Either way though, get ready to see a lot more of Yuumi again, and hopefully this time she won't be quite as toxic as she's been in the past. Ashe support has just been dominating the meta this season, and in this patch we've got another round of changes. Her Q is being buffed at the cost of her W's damage being reduced, and her ultimate cooldown being nerfed too. We still think Ashe support will be super strong though. The volleys won't hurt quite as much and the ultimate won't be quite as spammable, but the playstyle will still remain the same. So if you are enjoying the cheesy Ashe support playstyle, don't worry, it's probably not going anywhere. Twitch AP has been so difficult to beat in the last few months, ever since the buff to his ratios across the board at the end of last year. Whether it's AP Twitch mid or support, the sheer damage of those poisons and the expunge is so hard to play against. As he pots out a stealth, gives you a cheeky high, and before you know it your health is evaporating before your eyes, whilst you're still waiting for his crown to pop. Twitch's E and passive AP ratio is being nerfed from 35 to 30%, but although this helps, it's still going to be really popular and really strong in the hands of those Twitch 1 tricks. Well, that should give you everything that you need to know for patch 13.5. Don't forget to check out Mobalytics to keep up to date with all the best builds, runes and matchups, and best of luck in all your games. Thanks as always for watching guys, and take care.